Hey, what's going on, movie lovers all over the world? You already know who it is. It's your favorite internet sweaty, your boy Mikey Savage 21, bringing you another movie review. And today we're going to be looking at the 2017 American biopic crime film directed by Doug Liman, American Made. And this movie stars Tom Cruise, Domhnall Gleeson, Sarah Wright, Alejandro, Edda, Mauricio, Mejía, Caleb Landry Jones, and Jesse Plemons. And basically the plot focuses on Barry Seal, a former TWA pilot who becomes a drug smuggler for the Medellín Cartel in the 1980s. And in order to avoid jail time, Seal is approached by the United States government officials and serves as an informant of the DEA. Alright, so I had a chance to check this movie out last weekend, depending on when you're watching this movie, but I got a chance to watch it basically when it first came out, the night it came out, and I loved it. I thought it was great American biopic. One of the things that really interests me was not only just Tom Cruise in general, was the thought that the DEA or other higher ranking officials would be willing to take on civilians and whatnot and have them be spies ultimately, but then at the same time have a guy who's smart enough to know how to play both sides of the field to the point where he has stacks of money and he doesn't know exactly what to do with it. So I found that concept very interesting. So in terms of a biopic, this isn't your typical biopic film. Again, you do have Tom Cruise playing the person of Barry Seal, again, who's a pilot for the airline TWA. And again, he's contacted by CIA case officer Monty Schaefer, and that is Domhnall Gleeson's character. These two go on a journey together, ultimately wheeling and dealing and working for each other. Again, Barry Seal is working for both the United States and also working for the Medellín drug cartel as well. That's when he gets introduced to Pablo Escobar and all of the ultimate characters that ultimately make up the Medellín drug cartel. And so again, I thought this was an interesting premise, the way again it's told. Again, this is a biopic, but it's not a traditional biopic in a sense where it feels like an actual, you know, based on a true story biopic, but it doesn't feel like a typical, normal, stereotypical biopic. Especially the way Tom Cruise portrays himself in this movie. His character of Barry Seal seems to just be like a regular average Joe. And so that's one of the things I had to credit to Doug Liman for his direction style, and as well as Tom Cruise for ultimately bringing this character to life. Again, we also get introduced to Sarah Wright's character as Lucy Seal. She is ultimately his wife, and she also goes along with him on this journey in this ride. And one thing I got to say about Sarah Wright playing Lucy Seal was she had to go through some crap. Miss Seal had to go through some crap, especially when it got figured out that he ultimately was working for the CIA, and he's like, don't tell anybody. And then she's just going along with him on this scheme, and he's just dragging his kids along with him. And so again, one of the things I'll say about Sarah Wright is I thought she was a good female counterpart to Tom Cruise's Barry Seal here. And so one of the things I can say about Tom Cruise is, as of recently, a lot of his films, when it comes to his female counterparts, they ultimately are lackluster or they're too stereotypical. But Sarah Wright here, she wasn't the stereotypical house mother, wife, and whatnot. She was so much more, and at the same time, again, she was able to put up with all the crap that Barry's putting her through, but also trying to make a decent living for her kids and for his kids as well. And so that's also something with Tom Cruise's character Barry Seal. You can tell he's a family man and that he honestly and truly cares about his family, and at the heart, the reason that he wants to do all of this is because he wants to make a better living for his family. Domhnall Gleeson is Monty Schaefer. I thought he was a really good character. Domhnall Gleeson, the last movie I saw him pop in was Mother, and my review for Mother is up on the channel now. So I did think it was good to see Domhnall Gleeson and see his brother pop up as well. But with Domhnall Gleeson's character here, he again is playing the Shady Schaefer, as I will call him. Shady Schaefer. Ugh, that's a mouthful. Talk about a tongue twister. He ultimately, again, is dealing with Barry, and he is his point of contact. He's the one who gets him all this necessities he needs for being stationed over in the United States, and ultimately technically works for him while also working for Pablo Escobar as well. And so with Pablo Escobar and Monty Schaefer ultimately having common is Barry, and the way that they're able to basically pull his strings, but at the same time he's pulling their strings as the overall puppet master in this whole thing. So one of the other things I'll say about this film was it was interesting to see how Barry started out. Again, he started as a TWA commercial airline pilot. Then he was contacted by the CIA and started working for the CIA. Then he ultimately just kept going up the ranks and up the ranks. Again, once he goes from the CIA, then he goes to the DEA, then he ultimately goes to the FBI, and then it ultimately ends with him ultimately working for the president. And so the way that he is telling this story and the way that we get it, it's in a specific order, but then at the same time, the way that it's structured throughout the movie, we also have a definitive timeline where he's going and actually recording these tapes because worried what will happen if he gets caught. So he starts recording these tapes, ultimately, again, documenting him working for the CIA, and then ultimately working for the FBI, and then working for the president directly himself. So he gets to go through all these steps, and he's ultimately our cinematographer in this movie, basically. And so again, it was interesting to see the inner workings with Reagan being in office and everything, and how that whole played out about the whole drug cartel, and how you had Ollie North being introduced in here as well, and how they all just tied this together. And so again, that's one of the things I have to give credit to Doug Liman for here, because I thought he did a very fantastic job of directing this movie. It had action when it needed to have action, it had serious moments when it had serious moments, and just like Tom Cruise, he's a natural born comedian. So when he started having these little funny witty banters back and forth with the different characters, it was nice to see that as well. So overall, I thought this was a really good film. I do think this is something you should check out in theaters. Again, it's not your stereotypical biopic. It's something different where it kind of transcends the genre of a biopic in a way. The way it's told, it almost feels, you know, unlike a biopic almost, but it technically is a biopic about Barry Seal. And so again, just wrapping up my final thoughts about the film. Again, I thought the acting here was superb. I thought the dialogue was good. All the comedic timing was good. I felt like it was just on firing on all cylinders. And when it first started out, I said, okay, where are we going with this? And then ultimately just kept kicking it up a notch and just kept going and going and going. And it kept building on that momentum till we ultimately got to the end of the film. Again, with these based on a true story films, sometimes you can take liberties with the property and can ultimately get muddled down with Hollywood, as they tend to do with certain movies. But I thought this was a great movie, and I definitely recommend you checking it out. In terms of a score, I am ultimately going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. I thought this was a really solid biopic. Again, I thought the acting was great. I thought the direction was great. If I had to pick out one few of the negatives, I felt like the beginning was a little slow, but most films are slow in terms of biopics because you ultimately have to get there. And then sometimes I felt like maybe the stakes didn't feel as high in the film because, you know, when we get to the ultimate conclusion at the end, I felt like it was a little bit of a lackluster ending, but everything leading up to the ending was ultimately great as well. And in terms of how many cups I'm going to give this, I'm ultimately going to give this movie 5 cups. 5 out of 6 cups. Hashtag how many cups. Remember to tweet at movie_Java for all your movie review related needs. What they do is they are a site where they take the scores of film fans of you and me, and they ultimately retweet and share those with other film fans across the world. So if you want to have your points validated, you want to reach out to other reviewers around the world, then make sure you tweet at movie_Java. Thank you as always so much for checking out this review. As always, please remember to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified every time a video drops. Make sure you tap the bell because then you definitely won't miss out on another awesome review like this. Thank you as always. Please remember, if you enjoy the channel, to also go check me out on Patreon. And Patreon is basically how these videos ultimately get made. I don't work for a company, and this is ultimately my second form of income, and so you guys who are able to bless me in tremendous ways, thank you so much. Again, follow me on Patreon at officialms21. Thank you as always. Remember, as I always say, to become a savage, stay a savage, and peace out, y'all. Later.